Royal Guardess hands tremble. After Princess Charlotte cries, "My stomach is tearing apart." The morning sun rose gently over the royal palace, casting a warm golden glow across the marble floors and delicate tapestries that decorated the walls. It was a quiet morning, the kind of peaceful beginning that the palace rarely enjoyed, for there was always something to attend to, some event to prepare for, or some visitor arriving unexpectedly. But this morning felt calm, almost serene, as though the palace itself had taken a deep breath and settled into a rare moment of stillness. Princess Charlotte, the youngest daughter of the royal family, awoke early, as she always did. She had a routine she followed with careful precision, one that allowed her to begin the day with clarity and composure. Her room was filled with soft light filtering through the lace curtains, illuminating the elegant furniture and the polished floors. Charlotte sat by her window for a moment, looking out at the gardens below. The flowers were just beginning to bloom, their colors vibrant against the green grass. She inhaled deeply, feeling the fresh morning air fill her lungs, yet she could not shake a faint unease that had settled in her stomach. Though she was young, Charlotte had always been known for her grace and calm presence. She carried herself with a quiet dignity that seemed beyond her years. People admired her not only for her beauty, but also for her kindness and wisdom. She moved through life with a steady, confident air, and yet this morning there was something different about her. A slight tension pulled at her features, something small yet noticeable, something that made those who knew her well pause and observe carefully. Among those watching closely was Sergeant William, a senior member of the Royal Guard. William had served the royal family for many years and had become deeply devoted to the safety and well-being of its members. He was a man of discipline, trained to notice the smallest details, to anticipate danger before it arrived. William's life was built around vigilance, around protecting the royal family from threats that were sometimes visible and often hidden. His eyes, sharp and watchful, had learned to read the subtle signs of discomfort, worry, or fear. And this morning, he noticed them in Charlotte. There was a pallor on her cheeks that he had never seen before, a slight furrow in her brow, and a tension in her posture that suggested she was not entirely at ease. William's instincts told him that something was wrong, though he could not yet determine the cause. He observed her silently, his hands folded behind his back, as Charlotte prepared for breakfast. She moved with her usual grace, yet her steps seemed a touch heavier, as if carrying a weight she could not name. The breakfast hall was filled with the soft clinking of china and the gentle murmur of attendants going about their duties. Charlotte sat at the long, polished table, and attendants served the morning meal with quiet efficiency. William stood at the far end of the hall, a silent presence, watching carefully. He noted the way Charlotte picked at her food, pushing it around on her plate rather than eating. It was unlike her to show disinterest in a meal, especially one prepared with such care for her tastes. As she sipped her tea, William saw her hands tremble slightly. He tensed, his own hands tightening into fists at his sides. He had learned to trust these instincts over the years, to recognize when a person in his care was in need of help, even if they did not speak the words aloud. Charlotte had always been strong, always composed, and seeing this small but unmistakable sign of discomfort made him uneasy. He knew that even someone who appeared strong could be vulnerable in ways that were not immediately visible. The morning continued, and Charlotte attended to her routine engagements. She met with the palace advisors, went over schedules, and greeted visiting dignitaries with her usual poise. She smiled politely, spoke softly, and maintained an air of calm control. Yet William noticed the subtle signs that betrayed her inner struggle. Her steps were careful, measured, and slightly hesitant. Her eyes, though bright, seemed to flicker with an emotion she could not fully conceal. And there was a quiet tension in her shoulders, a rigidity that suggested she was bracing herself against something unseen. William could feel his own anxiety growing. As a royal guard, he had faced many dangers, intruders, threats, emergencies, but nothing compared to the helplessness he felt now. This was not an external threat that could be confronted with strength or strategy. This was a threat to the princess herself, a personal and invisible danger that made him feel powerless, even as he stood ready to act. By mid-afternoon, Charlotte decided to take a walk in the palace gardens. The gardens were expansive, filled with blooming flowers, neatly trimmed hedges, and winding paths that led to quiet, secluded spots. It was a place where she often found solace, a sanctuary away from the pressures of royal life. William followed discreetly, maintaining his usual vigilance while allowing her the space to move freely. At first, the walk was peaceful. Charlotte admired the roses, stopped to watch a butterfly flit among the flowers, and inhaled the fragrance of jasmine and lavender. Yet as she walked, William noticed that her steps became slower, more deliberate. She paused more frequently, placing a hand gently on her stomach. Her face, once calm, now bore the faintest signs of distress. William's heart tightened and he moved slightly closer, his training guiding him to remain alert while offering reassurance. Then, without warning, Charlotte stopped completely. She clutched her stomach with both hands and her face twisted in pain. William's heart leapt. This was no longer subtle discomfort. This was something severe. He moved immediately to her side, his eyes scanning the surroundings even as he focused on her. Attendants who had followed at a distance rushed forward, their expressions filled with alarm. Charlotte sank to the ground, her hands pressing against her abdomen, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. William knelt beside her, placing a steadying hand on her arm. He spoke softly, though his own voice carried the urgency he could not entirely hide. "Princess Charlotte, you're safe. Help is coming, just hold on." His words were meant to reassure her, but even as he spoke, he felt a deep, gnawing fear. The sight of someone so strong, so composed, in such visible pain was something that shook him to his core. He could see the tears welling in her eyes, and he realized that the princess he had always seen as composed and unshakable was human, fragile, vulnerable, and in need of care. William's hands trembled slightly as he held hers, not from weakness but from the overwhelming weight of responsibility. Every second felt critical, every movement heavy with significance. He prayed silently that the physician would arrive quickly, that the pain would pass, that Charlotte would be okay. As the minutes stretched on, William felt the full force of the bond between protector and the one protected. He had trained for years to defend against visible threats, to confront danger with courage and precision. Yet nothing in his training had prepared him for the helplessness he felt in the face of Charlotte's suffering. He was a guard, a protector, a shield, yet here he was, powerless to immediately remove the source of her pain. Charlotte's eyes met his, filled with fear and trust in equal measure. In that moment, William understood the profound responsibility he bore, not only to protect her from external threats, but also to support her in her moments of vulnerability. His presence, steady and unwavering, became a lifeline, a silent promise that she was not alone. The palace itself seemed to pause, the usual bustle fading into the background. The garden, with its blooming flowers and gentle breeze, became a stage for this sudden, intimate moment of crisis. William's mind raced through possibilities, plans, and precautions, but all of that mattered little compared to the immediate need to comfort and stabilize the princess. Every thought was focused on her well-being, every action deliberate and careful. As Charlotte continued to struggle, William remained by her side, speaking softly, offering words of reassurance and maintaining physical support. He guided her gently to a bench, helping her sit in a way that eased her discomfort as much as possible. He adjusted the folds of her dress, ensured her posture was supported, and kept a watchful eye on every subtle change in her condition. Even in the midst of chaos, William's training allowed him to maintain calm. His mind cataloged the symptoms, prepared for the physician's arrival, and anticipated potential complications. Yet beneath this professional composure was a profound human emotion, fear for someone he cared for deeply, the kind of fear that was invisible but heavy, pressing on his chest with every passing moment. Charlotte, though in pain, seemed to find some comfort in his presence. She could sense his dedication, the silent vow he had taken to protect her, and it offered a fragile sense of security. In that shared understanding, there was a bond that transcended rank, title, or duty, a connection between human beings facing the unpredictable challenges of life. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting its warm light over the garden, William stayed vigilant. He adjusted his stance, ready to act on the first sign of further deterioration. He knew that moments like this were tests of courage, patience, and empathy. The morning that began so calmly had transformed into a moment of intense focus and quiet heroism, a moment that would remain etched in his memory forever. And though the cause of Charlotte's discomfort remained uncertain at that moment, William's resolve was unwavering. He would remain by her side, steady and alert until the danger, whatever form it took, had passed. For him, being a royal guard was more than a duty. It was a calling, one that demanded strength, compassion, and the ability to face the unknown with unwavering courage. The garden, which had only moments ago been calm and peaceful, now seemed to hold its breath. Princess Charlotte's sudden cry of pain had shattered the quiet morning, and the sound lingered in the air like an echo of alarm. "My stomach! It's tearing apart!" she had shouted, her voice breaking through the tranquility and reaching the ears of every person nearby. The words were sharp and urgent, filled with fear, and they sent a ripple of panic through the attendants and guards who had been accompanying her. Sergeant William, standing closest to her, felt an immediate surge of adrenaline. His hands, trained to remain steady in any situation, trembled slightly as he reacted. It was not fear for himself that caused the tremor. It was the overwhelming worry for the princess he had sworn to protect. He had seen danger before, intruders, threats to the palace, even fires and accidents, but nothing compared to the helplessness he now felt. This was personal, and it was raw. This was Charlotte herself in pain, and there was no weapon he could draw to fix it instantly. Attendants rushed forward, their hands outstretched, voices filled with concern. William moved to Charlotte's side immediately, kneeling beside her and placing a steady hand on her arm. "Princess Charlotte, you are safe," he said firmly, yet softly, trying to soothe her. "Help is on the way, just hold on." His voice was calm, despite the rapid beating of his heart. He had learned that when someone is in pain, their fear can be eased not just by care, but by a strong, steady presence. Charlotte clutched her stomach, her fingers digging into the fine fabric of her dress as if trying to anchor herself to something solid. Her eyes were wide, filled with both shock and fear, and tears had begun to form at the corners. The royal guard could see her struggle to maintain composure, to remain the poised princess she always was, but the pain was overwhelming, breaking through every layer of control. William's mind raced. He had to act, and he had to act quickly. Every second mattered. Other guards moved to form a protective circle around the princess and the attendants, ensuring that nothing in the surroundings could pose additional risk. Their disciplined presence created a barrier of safety, allowing Charlotte to focus on her pain without distraction or panic. William's experience in emergency situations guided him, but even with all his training, this was different. There were no instructions in any manual for moments like this, where a protector could do nothing but be present, hold a hand, and hope that help arrived quickly. Charlotte's breathing had become uneven, shallow gasps punctuated by sudden sharp intakes of air. William leaned closer, speaking softly, trying to give her a sense of control. "Take slow breaths, princess. I am here, you are safe. The physician is coming right now." He knew that words alone could not remove the pain, but they could anchor her, provide a thread of reassurance amidst the storm of discomfort she was experiencing. Minutes stretched painfully long as attendants ran to summon the royal physician. The palace staff moved with urgency, their footsteps echoing on the stone pathways. William could hear them calling out, coordinating with one another, and he felt a small measure of relief knowing that the trained medical professional would arrive soon. But the wait felt endless. Each second was heavy, weighted with the fear that Charlotte might worsen before help arrived. He adjusted his position, making sure she was seated comfortably on a stone bench that provided some support. The morning sun beat gently on the garden, but it did nothing to ease the heat of Charlotte's discomfort. William noticed how every slight movement caused her to wince, and he instinctively positioned himself to prevent her from tipping or losing balance. His hands remained close to hers, ready to respond to any sudden change, his eyes never leaving her face. Charlotte's trust in him was evident even as she struggled. She squeezed his hand weakly, her fingers trembling, and gave a small nod as if to acknowledge that she felt his presence and that it mattered. William felt a surge of determination. He could not eliminate her pain instantly, but he could be there, unwavering until she was safe. That, he decided, was his duty, not just to guard her body, but to guard her in the human way that mattered most in moments of vulnerability. As the minutes passed, William observed Charlotte closely, noting every subtle movement, every flicker of expression. He could see the tension in her muscles, the slight quiver in her lips, and the dampness of her skin from perspiration. Each observation informed his actions. He adjusted her seating position slightly, offered a cool handkerchief to her forehead, and whispered words of reassurance, reminding her that she was not alone. The royal attendants, though skilled and attentive, deferred to William in this moment, recognizing his role as both protector and steadying presence. They brought water and allowed Charlotte to sip slowly, though even that seemed difficult for her. William encouraged her gently, speaking in calm, measured tones to avoid startling her further. His presence became a kind of anchor in the chaos, providing a sense of stability and control. The royal physician arrived moments later, rushing into the garden with a small medical kit in hand. William immediately stepped aside but remained close, ready to assist if necessary. The physician knelt beside Charlotte, examining her carefully, asking brief questions and noting her condition with professional urgency. William watched, tension coiling in his chest, as the doctor worked quickly to determine the cause of the pain. Even as the physician began their work, Charlotte's anxiety did not fully subside. She looked to William repeatedly, her eyes searching for reassurance, and each time he met her gaze, he offered a silent promise. She was not alone, and he would remain at her side. The physical proximity mattered, the contact of a steady hand on hers, the quiet murmur of support. These were small things, but in moments of extreme vulnerability, they were profound. William's training in handling crises had taught him to observe, anticipate, and act, but it had never prepared him for the emotional weight of seeing someone he cared for in such visible distress. Every instinct screamed to protect her, every thought raced through potential scenarios, and yet he had to restrain himself to remain calm and focused. His hands still trembled slightly, not from fear for himself, but from the intensity of responsibility pressing down on him. Time seemed to stretch as the physician assessed Charlotte's condition. William remained vigilant, monitoring every subtle change, prepared to act immediately if her situation worsened. He adjusted her posture gently, encouraged her to breathe slowly, and whispered reassurance, knowing that in these moments, the human connection mattered as much as any medical intervention. Charlotte's breathing began to stabilize slightly as she focused on William's calm presence. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that even someone as strong and composed as a princess could lean on another person when in need. Her hands still trembled as they rested in his, but the warmth of his support offered a fragile comfort. It was a reminder that vulnerability did not equate to weakness, and that asking for or accepting help could be a source of strength. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting light across the garden and illuminating the tense scene. Birds chirped faintly, their songs seeming distant, almost as though the garden itself had paused to witness the unfolding crisis. William remained alert, his eyes scanning the surroundings even as his focus stayed firmly on Charlotte. The protective barrier of his presence extended beyond physical defense. It was an emotional shield, a silent promise of safety in the midst of uncertainty. Finally, the physician administered treatment and began providing careful instructions. Charlotte's pain began to lessen gradually, her features softening as relief slowly replaced the intense discomfort. William allowed himself a small, quiet exhale, though he did not release his vigilance. He remained at her side, ensuring she was stable, comfortable, and reassured. The crisis, while not entirely over, had been brought under control through careful attention, swift action, and unwavering support. Charlotte turned her eyes to William, gratitude and relief shining through the remnants of fear. She whispered a quiet "thank you," and William responded with a gentle nod. Words could not capture the depth of the moment. The bond forged between protector and princess solidified in the face of an unexpected and terrifying event. In that silent exchange, both understood something profound about trust, care, and human vulnerability. As the garden returned to its usual calm, William remained close, ready to continue supporting her as needed. The attendants, though busy with their own responsibilities, recognized the importance of his presence and allowed him to remain her steadying force. The princess, once composed entirely on her own, now experienced the relief of being held in a protective and caring presence, a reminder that even those who appear strongest sometimes need someone to lean on. The experience left William with a lasting impression. It reminded him that being a royal guard was not only about vigilance, strategy, and physical defense. It was about empathy, care, and understanding. Protecting someone in moments of human vulnerability could be just as critical as defending them from external threats. And in that moment, seeing Charlotte recover slowly from her sudden, intense pain, he felt a quiet pride and deep sense of purpose. The garden, now bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun, returned to its familiar serenity, but the events of the morning would remain etched in the memories of all who had witnessed them. For Princess Charlotte, it was a reminder of her humanity, of her ability to trust and rely on those around her. For William, it was a reaffirmation of his calling, a testament to the strength found not only in training and skill, but in compassion, presence, and unwavering dedication. The day continued, but neither Charlotte nor William would forget the intensity of those moments. The fear, the pain, the trembling hands, and the quiet reassurance that had guided them through the crisis. It was a moment of connection, of human care, and of understanding that the true duty of protection went beyond guarding the body. It extended to guarding the spirit, the dignity, and the well-being of those entrusted to one's care. The palace corridors were unusually chaotic that afternoon. The usual calm and orderly procession of attendants and guards had been replaced by urgency and movement, each step echoing through the grand halls as everyone worked together to ensure Princess Charlotte's safety. Sergeant William led the way, walking briskly but carefully, his eyes constantly scanning both the princess and the surroundings. He had trained for emergencies, but the rush of adrenaline in this moment was different. This was personal, and it carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. Charlotte was seated in a specially prepared royal carriage, the cushions arranged to give her as much comfort as possible. She clutched William's hand, her knuckles white from gripping it so tightly, and leaned slightly into him as though seeking both support and reassurance. The pain in her stomach had not fully subsided, though the physician's care had stabilized her temporarily. Every bump and jolt of the carriage caused a wince to pass across her face, and William adjusted her posture gently, holding her steady as the carriage began to move. The ride through the palace grounds was tense. The cobblestone paths, normally charming, now felt like obstacles to be navigated carefully. William's hands trembled slightly as he assisted Charlotte, not from fear for himself, but from the intensity of responsibility he felt. Each movement was calculated to prevent additional discomfort, each adjustment deliberate. He kept his focus sharp, knowing that even the smallest misstep could cause Charlotte to experience unnecessary pain. As they moved, William noticed the attendants glancing toward him. Their eyes were filled with worry, but also a silent trust. They knew that he had been by Charlotte's side since the onset of her pain, and they recognized the stability his presence provided. He had become more than a protector with weapons or authority. He was a steadying presence, a lifeline in a moment when the princess could not rely on herself entirely. Charlotte's breaths came in uneven rhythms, and William leaned closer, whispering encouragement. "Almost there, princess. You're safe. Just a little further." His voice was calm, steady, and meant to reassure her, to provide a thread of certainty in the midst of her discomfort. She nodded slightly, trusting him completely, even in her weakened state. The bond between them had deepened in the short span of the day, formed in the crucible of sudden pain and uncertainty. The carriage moved swiftly but cautiously toward the palace infirmary. The palace staff had cleared the path ahead, ensuring that no one would block their passage. William kept one hand lightly on Charlotte's arm, ready to respond to any sudden change in her condition. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him, but he welcomed it. This was what he had trained for, what he had committed himself to. Protecting her in this moment was not just about physical security, it was about presence, care, and vigilance. Charlotte's eyes scanned the interior of the carriage intermittently, focusing on familiar details, the cushions, the polished wood, the soft fabrics, but her attention frequently returned to William. She could feel his concern, his steady presence, and it offered a measure of comfort that nothing else could provide. She leaned into his support, allowing herself to trust completely, and in doing so, found a fragile sense of relief amidst the pain. As they neared the infirmary, the royal physician prepared the room for immediate treatment. Medical assistants arranged equipment, while attendants adjusted lighting and temperature to ensure Charlotte would be as comfortable as possible. William coordinated quietly, directing the movement of staff and ensuring that Charlotte's journey from the carriage to the infirmary would be smooth and pain-free. Every step was considered, every adjustment measured, and his training guided him through each moment with precision. When the carriage finally came to a stop, William helped Charlotte out gently. She leaned on him slightly, trusting him entirely as they moved together. The attendants formed a protective circle around them, clearing the way and providing support as needed. William's hands remained close to Charlotte, ready to assist her in maintaining balance or easing her pain. The sense of urgency that had filled the palace corridors now translated into careful, coordinated action, each movement designed to prioritize Charlotte's safety and well-being. Inside the infirmary, the physician quickly assessed her condition. William watched closely, ready to assist but careful not to interfere. The physician's hands moved deftly, examining Charlotte's abdomen, noting her responses, and preparing for immediate intervention if necessary. Charlotte's face remained tense, her brow furrowed, but she found comfort in William's quiet support. He remained close, whispering gentle words of encouragement and holding her hand with a steady, reassuring grip. Time seemed to stretch, every second heavy with concern. William's mind catalogued every detail: Charlotte's breathing, her reactions, the faint tremor in her hands, the subtle changes in her color and posture. His own hands trembled slightly, though he remained composed outwardly. It was a mixture of relief and tension, a physical manifestation of the responsibility he carried. He had been trained for emergencies, but the human element, the fear, the pain, the trust placed in him, was far more intense than any scenario he had practiced. Charlotte's gaze frequently met his, her eyes searching for reassurance. William offered it silently, a quiet promise in the meeting of their eyes. In those moments, no words were necessary. His presence, calm and unwavering, was enough to provide a sense of security amidst the chaos. She squeezed his hand lightly, a gesture of gratitude, trust, and reliance. It was a small but profound moment that reinforced the bond between protector and princess, forged in the crucible of sudden crisis. The physician began administering treatment, carefully monitoring Charlotte's reactions. William remained by her side, adjusting her seating, supporting her as she shifted slightly, and whispering reassurances. The pain had not fully subsided, but with every careful movement and attentive action, it became more manageable. William's vigilance ensured that nothing was overlooked, that Charlotte remained safe and supported throughout the process. Outside the immediate treatment, the palace continued its usual rhythm, though quieter and more controlled than usual. The attendants moved efficiently, following instructions and ensuring that Charlotte's environment was as comfortable as possible. Guards remained vigilant, though they deferred to William, recognizing his role as both protector and anchor. The princess, though weakened by the pain, found a measure of peace in the coordinated care surrounding her. William's thoughts occasionally drifted to the broader meaning of his role. Protecting the royal family was not only about defending against physical threats. It was about anticipating needs, responding to emergencies, and providing calm assurance in moments of uncertainty. In this instance, he realized, true protection involved emotional support as much as physical presence. By staying close, maintaining composure, and offering reassurance, he had helped Charlotte navigate a moment of intense vulnerability. Charlotte, sensing the care and dedication surrounding her, allowed herself to relax slightly. Her breathing became steadier, and the tension in her muscles lessened. She remained weak, but the fear that had dominated the morning began to ebb. William's hands continued to offer steady support, his voice calm and measured, his attention unwavering. It was a demonstration of the subtle but profound ways in which protection and care can manifest. The physician began providing further instructions for treatment, and William assisted in implementing them. He adjusted Charlotte's position, ensured that she followed the recommended breathing techniques, and guided her through movements that minimized discomfort. The attendants followed his lead, creating a harmonious environment focused entirely on her well-being. In this way, the chaos of the palace corridors had transformed into a controlled, attentive space where every action was purposeful and every detail considered. As Charlotte rested, William remained close, his mind alert for any sign of change. He understood that recovery would not be instantaneous, and he was prepared to respond at a moment's notice. Each subtle shift in her expression, each breath, each movement was carefully noted, and his actions were guided by both training and intuition. The responsibility he bore was immense, but he faced it with calm determination and unwavering dedication. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only a brief span of time, Charlotte's condition began to stabilize more fully. The initial intensity of the pain had subsided, and a sense of relief began to settle over the infirmary. William allowed himself a quiet exhale, though he did not relax entirely. He remained vigilant, ensuring that Charlotte was comfortable and that the physician's instructions were being followed accurately. His role was far from over, but the immediate crisis had passed. Charlotte's eyes met William's once more, filled with gratitude and quiet relief. She whispered a simple "thank you," and he responded with a gentle nod. In that exchange, the depth of trust and reliance was evident. Words were not necessary to convey the bond that had been strengthened through crisis and care. William had not only protected her physically, but had also provided the emotional support that had allowed her to face the intense fear and pain of the day. As the day wore on, Charlotte rested in the infirmary, supported by the careful attention of the physician, attendants, and William. The palace slowly returned to its usual rhythm, though the events of the day had left a lasting impression on everyone involved. For William, it was a reminder that his duty extended beyond vigilance and physical defense. True protection required presence, empathy, and the ability to remain calm and composed under pressure, offering both safety and reassurance to those in need. The afternoon sun streamed through the infirmary windows, casting warm light on the room and illuminating the quiet, controlled environment. Charlotte, though still recovering, appeared more at ease, and William remained steadfastly by her side. The crisis had tested him in ways that no drill or training could replicate, but he had faced it with courage, care, and unwavering focus. The experience would remain with him always, a testament to the profound responsibilities of those entrusted with the safety and well-being of others. By the time the late afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, the atmosphere in the infirmary had shifted. The initial urgency that had filled the palace corridors and the garden had given way to a calmer, more measured energy. Princess Charlotte, though still pale and exhausted, was beginning to feel relief from the severe pain that had gripped her earlier. The royal physician continued to monitor her carefully, checking vital signs, adjusting treatments, and providing instructions to the attendants who moved with quiet efficiency around her. Sergeant William remained at her side, a constant and reassuring presence. His hands, once trembling with tension and fear, now rested steadily, providing both support and comfort. The weight of the morning's events still pressed on him, but it was accompanied by a profound sense of relief and satisfaction. He had fulfilled his duty, not only as a guard but as a protector in the truest sense, someone who had been present in Charlotte's moment of vulnerability, offering stability, reassurance, and care. Charlotte's breathing had returned to a more regular rhythm. She took slow, measured breaths, each one less painful than the last. Her fingers, which had gripped William's hand tightly for hours, relaxed slightly as she allowed herself to focus on the relief spreading through her body. Her eyes, though still tinged with fatigue, now held gratitude and trust. In her quiet way, she understood that what she had experienced was not just a medical crisis, but also a test of the bonds of care and protection that surrounded her. William, observing her closely, felt a swell of pride. The events of the day had been intense and frightening, but he had remained steadfast. He had acted quickly, thoughtfully, and with compassion, guided not only by his training but by a deep sense of responsibility and empathy. The lessons of the morning and afternoon would remain with him forever. The realization that true protection was as much about emotional support and presence as it was about guarding against external threats. The attendants, who had been working tirelessly throughout the day, began to ease their movements, though they remained attentive. Their actions were precise and efficient, and they moved in coordinated harmony with William, creating an environment in which Charlotte could rest safely and recover without additional stress. The palace, too, seemed to resume its rhythm, though the memory of the morning's crisis lingered in every corner, a reminder of the unpredictable nature of life, even within the walls of royalty. Charlotte's gaze occasionally met William's. Each time there was a silent acknowledgement of what had passed, the fear, the pain, and the relief. She squeezed his hand gently, a gesture of thanks that spoke louder than words. William nodded in return, offering a small, reassuring smile. In that quiet exchange, Both understood the depth of trust and care that had been established, and the unique bond forged between protector and princess in the crucible of crisis. As the physician completed their assessment, they provided instructions for continued care. Charlotte would need to rest and gradually regain her strength, but there were no indications of lasting danger. The relief was palpable, and William allowed himself a quiet exhale, though he did not relax entirely. His vigilance remained, as a guardian's responsibility does not end abruptly. It simply shifts focus as the immediate crisis subsides. Charlotte, still supported by William and the attentive attendants, leaned back against the soft cushions of the infirmary chair. Her eyes drifted to the window, where the golden hues of the setting sun painted the gardens in warm light. It was a serene contrast to the morning's turmoil, and she found comfort in the peaceful scene. The world outside continued, beautiful and calm, reminding her that moments of pain and fear, though intense, are often temporary and can give way to hope and relief. William observed her quietly, noting the small changes in her demeanor. The tension in her shoulders had eased, her breathing was steadier, and the faintest traces of a smile appeared on her lips. He knew that while the physical pain had lessened, the emotional impact of the morning's events would linger. But he also knew that the trust and reassurance he had offered would remain with her as well, forming a foundation of confidence and comfort for the future. The attendants prepared light refreshments for Charlotte, gentle foods that would not strain her recovering stomach. William assisted as needed, ensuring she could eat without discomfort. He offered encouragement, reminding her to take small bites and sip slowly. Her compliance was quiet but steady, demonstrating both her resilience and the calming effect of his presence. It was a small, routine act, but after the intensity of the day, it felt significant, a sign of recovery and normalcy returning to the palace. Throughout the afternoon, William remained a steadfast observer and supporter. He checked on Charlotte's comfort frequently, adjusting pillows, offering water, and ensuring she remained stable. His presence was a silent reassurance, a constant reminder that she was safe and cared for. The crisis had tested both of them in ways that were unexpected, but it had also highlighted the depth of their mutual trust and understanding. Charlotte finally leaned back, her hands resting lightly in her lap. She looked to William once more, her eyes expressing gratitude and recognition of his unwavering dedication. She spoke softly, her voice carrying the sincerity of someone who had experienced fear and relief in equal measure. "Thank you, William," she said, "for everything. I don't know what I would have done without you." William offered a gentle nod, his own emotions quiet but deeply felt. "You're safe now, Princess, that's what matters," he replied. "I'll always be here to protect you, no matter what happens." The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of years of training, loyalty, and genuine care. In that moment, the bond between protector and princess was reaffirmed, strengthened by shared experience and trust. The palace staff continued their work, ensuring that Charlotte's environment remained calm, comfortable, and supportive. William coordinated discreetly, providing guidance where necessary and allowing the physician to manage the medical aspects of her care. His role, though less frantic than it had been earlier, remained critical. He maintained a watchful eye, ensuring that every detail of her comfort and safety was attended to. As evening approached, the palace settled into a gentle rhythm. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the rooms and corridors. Charlotte's condition continued to improve, and she was able to sit with greater ease, her breathing more regular, her expressions softer. William remained nearby, offering support and ensuring that the transition from crisis to recovery was smooth and secure. In the quiet moments, Charlotte reflected on the events of the day. The sudden pain, the fear, and the overwhelming sense of vulnerability had been terrifying, yet they had also revealed something important. She had learned the depth of trust she could place in those who cared for her and the importance of accepting support when needed. William's steady presence had been a lifeline, and she knew that his dedication went beyond duty. It was a reflection of genuine care and commitment. William, too, reflected quietly. The day had tested him in ways no drill or practice could replicate. He had faced a moment of intense uncertainty and responsibility, and he had acted with both skill and compassion. The trembling hands, the fear, and the urgency had all been part of the experience, but so too had been the moments of calm reassurance, the small gestures of care, and the bond formed through shared experience. It was a reminder of why he had chosen this path, why he had devoted his life to protecting others, not just with strength, but with heart. Charlotte's recovery continued steadily into the evening. She was able to eat a small meal without difficulty, sip water comfortably, and move with gentle support. William remained nearby, guiding her as needed, adjusting her position, and maintaining his attentive presence. The palace, while resuming its normal rhythm, remained a quiet sanctuary for her recovery, and William's vigilance ensured that every precaution was taken. As night fell, Charlotte finally leaned back, her eyes heavy with fatigue but soft with relief. She looked to William once more, her expression reflecting gratitude, trust, and a sense of security. "You stayed with me the whole time," she said quietly. "I felt safe because of you." William offered a small, reassuring smile. "Always, Princess, you can rely on me." "That's my duty and my promise." His words were simple, yet they carried the depth of commitment and care that had guided him throughout the day. In that moment, both understood the profound significance of their bond, a connection forged through crisis, strengthened by care, and tempered by shared experience. The royal physician completed the final checks of the evening, confirming that Charlotte's condition was stable. William helped her prepare for rest, ensuring that her bed was comfortable and that she had everything she needed. The attendants moved quietly around her, following the physician's instructions and maintaining the calm, supportive environment that had been established. Finally, with all preparations complete, Charlotte lay down to rest. William remained nearby until she was fully settled, his eyes vigilant and attentive even as he allowed her a moment of privacy and quiet. The day had been long, intense, and filled with uncertainty, but now in the calm of the evening, a sense of relief and accomplishment filled the room. The palace, now bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, seemed to exhale after the tension of the day. Charlotte slept peacefully, her breathing steady and calm. William remained alert, though his heart was lighter, his hands no longer trembling. The crisis had passed, and with it came a sense of closure, relief, and quiet pride in having fulfilled his role with courage, dedication, and compassion. In the hours that followed, both Charlotte and William would carry the lessons of the day. She would remember the trust she had placed in him, the reassurance his presence provided, and the deep sense of care that had guided every action. He would remember the intensity of the moment, the responsibility he had borne, and the quiet satisfaction of having been there when it mattered most. The day's events, though frightening and exhausting, had revealed something important about both of them: the resilience of the human spirit, the power of trust and care, and the profound impact of presence and empathy in moments of crisis. For William, it was a reaffirmation of his purpose as a royal guard. For Charlotte, it was a reminder of her humanity and the strength found in relying on others when needed. As the palace settled into the quiet of night, the bond between princess and protector remained strong, a testament to courage, care, and unwavering dedication. The morning's fear, the afternoon's rush, and the evening's relief would remain etched in their memories forever, a story of resilience, trust, and the quiet heroism found in everyday acts of support and vigilance.